Well, hello, and welcome to Stop, Let's Team Up. I'm Ross Aiken, and I'm here with Martin. Introduce yourself.
Martin Gray, hello. I'm teaming up with Ross today from Bonnie, Scotland, although I'm English.
Oh, what part of Scotland?
Place called East Lothian, which is about 50 miles from the border with England.
That is the same part of where my grandfather immigrated from. He was from a town called Irvine.
Yeah, I've not been there, but it's probably not far. I'm
It's
living in a
close.
place
It's
called
like it's in the southwest corner.
Well, my partner Steve will know because he's from Scotland. So, right, I'll have to have a visit down there. Take some pictures for you.
I have family that still live there. My grandfather's father had another set of kids when he was an adult, and they're still over there. But they live in northern England. Um, so,
All right.
so
Are you saying he was a bigamist or
no,
Gary?
widowed, not big.
Oh,
Just
honestly, my great granddad was a bigamist, but it was all well meant.
All right, so we're here to talk Legion of Superheroes, but the first question I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Martin, how did you become a comic book fan?
Well, I was very lucky. I was in the England, growing up in England, when about 1971. I was born in '64, and back in those days, little kids could babysit other little kids, childmind other little kids. So about about the age of 8 year old, 8 or 9 year old or something, I was going over the road to look after the little kids of my mum's friend Lynette, and for looking after them, you get 50 pence, which was a lot of money in those days, and loads and loads of sweeties, candy, and also her brother, who used to read Superman comics, as we called them then. Every time she would give me a pile of about 100 comics that he'd left in the house that he didn't want anymore.
Oh, good
Uh,
God.
yeah, and so I would get piles and piles of Superman, Action, World's Finest, Lois Lane, JLA, Jimmy Olsen, not the less mainstream ones like Challenges and Metal Men and things, but and back then, it was only probably but they were about 10 year old, but it felt like they were from another century or something. They felt so old, and they had this smell even
I
then.
love that smell. I miss
Oh,
not having a lot of floppies in my house. I used to have a room with boxes of comics, and I miss that smell.
it's great. They should bottle it for comic fans, old and musty paper or something.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The decay of
So
newsprint.
yeah, it was great. So I was doing that for a couple of years, getting a couple of thousand comics. It was wonderful, free. And bit by bit, obviously you're reading everything out of order and just right. But because comics were pretty self-contained in those days, once you got the gist of one series in your head, you could enjoy any issue. And among those issues were the adventure comics starring the Legion of Superheroes.
Wow, that's a good way to start with those, is to have those old Legion ones in an adventure. Because, my first one was Superboy in the Legion. And it wasn't even Superboy in the Legion, it was Superboy, but they had and the Legion on the cover.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was soon buying those issues as they came out in the UK. 5 pence they were. So I was getting to read sort of the old ones at the same time as reading the new ones, and it was a bit of a shock seeing the Cockrum costumes after seeing the original, you know, more modest.
Yeah.
Then when Mike Grell came along with those costumes, good lord, bring on puberty.
I know it's there's this thing. It's because I was started with Cockrum, so the first Legion comic I really read, I remember reading, was a Cockrum one, Superboy 197,
Yeah,
and I do think he is the greatest superhero costume designer, probably second only to Kirby, because his costumes for whoever he was doing are amazing, and they hold up. You know.
they really do. They really do. I mean, I was reading some news article on comics media last week, and it was saying that Carol Hounder's binary form was coming back, but they've had the costume redesigned, modernized, and it's like they've kept elements of the color scheme, but it just looks absolute pants compared to the original. If the original hadn't existed, you'd think that's a perfectly serviceable superhero costume, but compared to the wildness, the energy of the Cockrum binary design, it's just not there.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I, I'm a huge Element Lad is my Legionnaire.
Mystery Lad,
No, yeah, Element Lad.
but he came as
Oh,
Mystery
that's right.
Lad.
He was Mystery. God, I haven't read that one. I'm one thing about doing my
Oh, yeah.
Legion adventure is I'm doing a I'm rereading Legion in order,
Yeah.
which I haven't done since like like right when Zero Hour came out. I had toward the right in the middle of 5 years later, I started a massive reread,
Gotcha.
and I did. It took me like a year.
Oh, it would do, and I bet you didn't see your other half for a year.
Well, I wasn't married then. I didn't get married till later, and I got married. I was in my 30s, I guess, or late 20s, and it was okay.
Yeah.
I just, and I lived with a comic fan who had never read a Legion comic, I think, until I turned him on to it. And then he read all mine,
Yeah.
and fell
Yeah.
in love. It's addictive because and we're going to talk. I think we're going to end up talking about that. There's something about Legion, especially up through. I loved it up through the reboot. I liked the reboot a great deal after Zero Hour.
I did too.
I thought it was very true to the original and was a good gateway for people. You could read it and read a great Legion story and then still go back and enjoy the pre-Zero Hour version.
You could. I think I had just enough sort of tweaks and homages to the original Silver and Bronze Age stories to keep the old fan happy, but also they did enough new things to keep the old fan and the new fan happy. When they created the character like Kinetics, you could think, well, she would have slotted
Oh
straight into the old.
yeah,
Rightfully.
Thunder. I liked her, the Shazam character. That you would have a Shazam oriented character in the 30th century.
It does make sense, although I probably disagree with you in general on those, because one of the things I liked about the Legion, I have it in my notes here, is that apart from Supergirl and Superboy, they were pretty much divorced from the 20th
Yeah.
century, and then I think with the Zero Hour, we got in characters like Jenny Ognass XS, who I did enjoy, but it's like, oh, we've got to have a Flash, we've got, let's have this connection more to Shazam, and I quit. It makes perfect sense that the Flash legacy would continue, and of course Shazam had been going thousands of years before the 20th century, but I pretty much prefer my Legion self-contained, not like spending 2 years back in the 20th century or something like that.
Well, I get you because that on the three boot. Was it in the three boot where Shooter wrote some and it was the descendants of Justice Leaguers were killing Legionnaires or something? I've not read all the three boot. I'm gonna sit down and do that one day. But I read a few of them and I really didn't care for them.
Yeah.
But it wasn't written for me. I was a middle-aged man when they were coming out, and they were trying to attract They were trying to attract new readers.
Yeah, there's a Legion for everybody.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And the comics, there used to be the 10-year rule.
5 year, Russell, pretty much.
Yeah, 5-year rule. You have to you kind of reboot or start over, do a gateway issue because the majority of comic fans age out.
Yeah, they used to reuse plots. Like when you were talking about the first Legion, just before we started, you mentioned that the first Legion that you did read was The Return of Timberwolf, and around that time there was a Superboy story, a new Superboy story, probably art by Cockrum and that. And on the cover, I don't know whether you've seen it, it was probably the 180s or something, and it was Superboy running with the wolf pack, and I enjoyed that. And then years later, I saw that they'd done that story in the early 60s, and they just again pretty much just redone the script and redone the cover. And but again, the audience had completely turned around almost, and so they could do that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean and we're gonna talk. We're only gonna talk about the original Legion up until probably 5 years. I mean that's what I wanted us to focus on, and they've rebooted it and it's worked. But there were within the original Legion run, there are, in my mind, different eras. There's the pre-adventure run when they were just characters that popped up from time to time.
Uh-huh.
And some of those are great, but they're mostly short backup stories. I'm only 3 issues in, and one story's already been repeated. In a way, the Superboy origin and the Supergirl origin it's pretty much the same plot.
It really is, but it's only about 2 years apart or something like that.
Yeah, and it's only the third Legion story.
Yeah.
But there's some good ones coming in. There's the next one I got to read is the Lex Luthor one, which I haven't read in years, so I think, and Lightning Lad's the only character that pops up in it. but then the first Starboy's coming up, as a Starman family, Starboy has gained a place in my heart when he was added, because I've always been a comic fan, but in the 90s I fell in love with Starman, and he
Gotcha.
became and the Starman family became really important to me because Robinson's Starman series was just so good.
It's totally amazing. But Starboy had always been one of my favourites from the start because basically, I mean, the powers wasn't that amazing, but the costume, the colour combination of the purple and the white and the cape, and the cool very short hair, and then when he got involved with Dream Girl and had the romance going on, it just
Yeah,
he had his little tragedies here and there. I loved Starboy.
I did
And
too. I think I didn't really, even before Robinson's run on Starman, uh, he I didn't really know a lot about him. But then when they reprinted the Surprise Mysterious,
yeah, yeah.
um, and they came back, I was like, that one. It's still one of my favorite Legion stories of all time. It's
Oh,
easily in my top 5, easily.
right, absolute bonkers nonsense by E. Nelson Bridwell, and just totally wonderful.
It is, and it's gorgeous. It's God. I'm a huge fan of Swan Klein. I'm also a huge fan of John Buscema and Klein because they did some Avengers together. But both of those artists hated Klein. I'm like,
Really?
really?
Oh,
Yeah. My brother said, oh, they hated him. They said he was too heavy-handed, and I went, it's a gorgeous polish.
I would never look at that and think, because you can totally see Kurt Swan, you can totally see John Buscema.
Yeah. I think it's a nice polish. It's a nice
Yeah.
finish. It makes it pop. And I love Swan. I like Swan when he inks himself. I love Swanderson is genius.
Oh, absolutely wonderful. So you were saying Ross, that you see different eras in the First Legion. So yeah, there was
There,
the early era, then the adventure era.
yeah, well, the Adventure Era 300 with who's writing it then? Is that Binder and
Indra
And Forte?
Jerry Siegel, then Edmund Hamilton, I think. I
Okay,
think it was
yeah, I
three of
look
them.
at more. It's the Forte art,
Yep, yep,
which I have grown to love when I read that era because it is such a simple time.
yep.
And
I love John Forte.
it is, and his art is perfect for these very simple action stories for kids.
Yeah, presumably he got the assignment because he'd been drawing the Bizarro World strip before that the Legion replaced.
Yeah, because George Papp did some of the early ones. Jim Mooney did the Supergirl ones, and I'm not a huge Mooney fan. Um, and I think it's because his Supergirl the Legion story with Supergirl was beautiful, but sometimes he would be given bad inkers or he'd be wrong for the later on when I was a kid. He would, and I don't like, he did a lot of the art for the Action run when they moved it to the back of Action.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
It was him and Tuska, and I love Tuska.
I like George.
Yeah, I read a lot of my first Iron Man books were drawn by George Tuska.
I think George Tusker drew one of the first modern in the early '70s Legion stories I read, which was the one I think it was perhaps the War Between the Night and the Days or something. It was one where you had the 4 new reader costumes for Shadow, Lass, Karate Kid.
Yeah, with the weird color palette on a couple of those.
I did like the Karate Kid white and black though.
I did. That's about the only one I really like, and then kind of Grell went with that a little bit, didn't he? With his.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, but yeah, the gold outfit on Shadow Lass was bizarre.
It made no sense. It was weird. It was like, and I like a good experiment in color. But there are the different eras. There's that one, the adventure era, and then I consider this kind of the wilderness years in a way. After they stopped putting it in adventure, and they moved it to action, and then it was just it was just a backup in Superboy.
Yeah, the epic. It was like little smaller stories.
Yeah, and I think the backup stuff in Superboy was good, and that's why it ended up they moved it. I don't know if it was that the popularity of Superboy was waning. I don't know why people started buying Superboy and they figured it out they were buying it for Legion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Superboy lost his strip twice to the Legion, didn't he? Because in Adventure Comics, he was relegated to reprints in the back when the Legion took over the front from him.
Mm.
And he lost his strip where didn't Lloyd lose to be joined with the Legion in Superboy, and it was poor guy.
Yeah. Well, I've never. There are Superboy series that I've enjoyed, but I don't think I ever really was a fan of any of the Superboy solo stuff.
I love them all. I love the fact that Lana Lang was there, and the dad would come from an archaeology exhibition and with some magical ornament or something, or someone would grow large, and I just love that. I've actually quite regularly dream about living in Smallville with Superboy. It's just I fly boy, and I love those, but I didn't mind at all when the Legion took over his comic in the 70s. Because again, you saw plenty of Superboy, and
Yeah, he
it's
was
like
always in every issue. He was an integral part of the story. But I also thought there's something like in the adventure stuff era, and what was brought over by who was writing it in when it was the backup, was that Siegel and Birdwell and Shooter and all them. Every Legionnaire had a personality.
yes, yeah,
You know, another. You know, and a unique one, and that you knew who was who, and you always got a different lineup, which kind of was because the membership was so big, you would get a different 5 or 6 people.
yeah.
Yeah, and but it was the Cockrum stuff, and that was a lot of Gary Bates, wasn't it? Gary Bates did some, and
Like yeah, Carrie Bass came, and then a few years later, when they'd taken over the whole magazine, you get Jim Shooter was brought back into comics, and Paul Levitz joined, etc.
yeah,
But
Levitz
Paul,
has
Paul,
two eras, doesn't he?
pardon?
Paul Levitz has 2 eras of Legion he worked
Yeah,
on, and one is
yeah, he was,
named after him. Well
yeah,
deserved, because I think um, I do think that's one of the greater runs. But I liked when Legion, and it grew in the second one from the backup to the lead. They started to make it. I don't want to say modernized it, but they definitely it reflected more the comic style of the time more. I think in the what I'm going to call the wilderness years, when they were bringing it, when it was had to find its foot again. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah. But then when they initially took over Superboy's magazine, it was totally a case of the personalities were whatever the plot needed that issue. You get someone acting really really stupid for the sake of a storyline, like Superboy being really angry that someone else was going to be leader, that sort of thing.
Oh
Which
God,
would
yeah, I forgot about that's all.
Yeah, and then stories like when you find out that the leads were really really quite old in their 40s or 50s, and they were brainwashing Superboy so he didn't know about the youth serums or whatever. It's just no more be those stories away.
Yeah. Um, and I think Levitz kind of corrects that because he wanted to. He was like us, a huge Legion fan,
Uh-huh.
and he wanted to kind of um, build on its past, but also take it seriously. Um,
He really did. He did, and when he got Keith Giffen as a regular collaborator, and obviously he was a very good plot man as well. And they started co-plotting. Just everything just expanded. I mean, what an amazing period of expansion,
it,
dynamic, and consistency. Amazing.
It is, and it's because I like that era from when it becomes Legion, and when Jerry Conway was writing, it was pretty good. I'm a huge
Yeah.
Roy fan. His Legion, not his shining moment in comic writing.
No, it wasn't what he wanted. I think it was one of the early assignments that he was given while they were arranging for him to do the things he really wanted to do.
Yeah,
Like Batman, he did a few issues of Batman. He didn't want Batman, but in time they were able to give him, Arak and All Star Squadron and what have you.
yeah. I mean, I'm a huge Roy fan, but he was not suited for this, and I don't think Jerry Conway's were okay. They're okay.
They were fine.
Yeah,
They were
and
okay.
it's kind of like right before Levitz came back, and Giffen moved from the backup artist when
Yep.
Pat Broderick, and I love Pat Broderick's Legion.
Oh, big fan. Yeah,
Oh,
I don't think printing back then did him any favors at all, though. And it was with Bruce Patterson inks, which was they can be very good sometimes, like Marvel, I think, on Micronauts or something. But the printing of the issues that we got in the UK then really didn't help Pat Broderick at all. And then when Keith Giffen came on, and then got Larry Malstead. It was so sharp. I think the
Uh,
printing.
I'm a big fan of early Giffen so much because I remember reading my brother. He did a handful of challenges, the unknown.
Oh, I like them.
Oh,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
gorgeous. And he did
Yes,
a short run on Defenders.
yeah, yeah.
Just gorgeous. And then I'm
Yeah.
still a fan of his. People, even when his art started to evolve,
Yeah.
and I still love it, But
Oh, absolutely. It's never less than interesting. He's always thinking and trying new things. And even though you have that period of a couple of years when he was aping or homaging, was it Munoz or something? I don't know the artist. We put those black shadows on people's faces. It was just something about it. It was just, I don't know. I'm just a total Giffen fan.
I
It's
am,
never booked.
and I think the Levitz Giffen era is probably the high mark of Legion totally. Because you have 30 characters, they're all treated equally. They all have personalities. Um, they all are given a moment to shine, and it's not fans. All the stuff they bring from the past or reference and everything. It's never fan service. It's just we have this world, and these are the things that happen in this world. We've got the prison planet, the landmarks that Giffen, that Levitz had binders with notes on everything.
Well, I believe he had big wall charts as well, going across for a couple of years worth of where people were and what plot lines and characters were coming in, and I like to say he had things like Webber's World that would come in and out, and the space. What was the hospital called?
Uh,
Regis.
oh God, Medica, I forget.
Oh, Medicus One.
Medicus One, yes. And the
The horse,
doctor with three arms.
Dr. Gimmel or something.
Dr. Gimmel, yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
And it was amazing stuff, and you loved it. And then he embraced that. Yes, we're still going to have the vote. I love following the Legion elections, and I voted in a few.
Oh, so we couldn't in the UK.
Because you guys were out of sync, weren't you?
Totally, yeah. So we were about back in those days, about 3 or 4 months behind.
Yeah, and I'm a huge, and that's when I became an Element. That's when Element Lad really became my Legionnaire, because the way Levitz and Giffen pulled him and Dream Girl, like these are really two very, Dream Girl got elected because they were using her as a primary character. That there was something about Levitz and Giffen liked about her and her power, and they started writing her more.
Yeah, I also heard that at the time in Legion fandom, the Amateur Press Association and things, that people thought Dream Girl was such an unlikely candidate that they did not quite fix the election, but they really pushed for Dream Girl to get elected.
Oh, I like that. I think.
And then that's when Levitz really started and Giffen really started, showing more of what she could do. But I think before that we had that issue where she used the flight wing in a way that nobody else had before, and it showed how intelligent she was.
Yes. Well, and I think they do that in the Surprise Mysterious stuff. That is, that Birdwell is kind of showing that these are great characters.
Yeah, well, when the first appearance, she did some scientific tricks, didn't she, to change lightning lass's power to light lass.
Yeah, and it just always made sense because she's seeing the future moments in advance. You know what I mean? She can react. She can plan better. Yeah. And that was just a good. I mean, those elections were great. I remember when they in the letters page around the time it was transitioning from Broderick to Giffen.
Yeah.
In the letters column, they were starting to go, well, here are all the past leaders. Here's the order in which everybody joined. And me as a fan was like, oh, wait a minute. This is, cool. And then, you know what I mean? Because we didn't have Wikipedia. We didn't have those. Yeah. I ordered them early in the pandemic because I didn't have them. The index, the 5 issues, the Deep Legion Index comics that are kind of.
Yeah, with Kurt Swan covers and things.
Yeah, gorgeous Kurt Swan covers. So I could, then I had reference, and then they put that Who's Who of Legion out in I guess it was the 80s.
It was post-crisis, and it was after the original Who's Who. So it was about it must be like about 88, 89 or something.
Yeah, which is fun too because it gives you all that history. And then I'm a big list. I'm one of those guys that made lists when I was learning about a comic, who was a member
Yeah.
when and stuff like that. So it was nice to know it. And they just in this the Levitt Giffen era, it was just I don't think there was ever a bad issue. And this is when it's also the book sold the best it ever did.
Oh yes,
It
yes
was on
indeed.
par with Titans, X-Men. It was a go-to book.
Absolutely. And because at one point it did have that 1 year experiment of having the two new stories, 2 books a month. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it was. And those were great stories. They were good arcs. And
Oh yeah, a
um,
nice art, Jurgens and Shoemaker and things. Really good.
oh God, all these people that came on, Tom and Mary Bierbaum and stuff like but that's in 5 years. They come
Yeah,
in later.
yeah.
Um, it's it's so good, and I liked the 5 years later. I thought it was a great idea. I think it went a little long, um, but it also gave us some great characters.
It really did. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like them, but I mean that's one of the best things about the Legion is the fact that it has such a great fandom. Fans have such a sense of ownership, and that I think that started very early on, didn't it? In the adventure columns, when you had bits of Legionnaire business, and people could suggest Legionnaires, and some of them appeared. Some of them appeared at the Legion initiation or Legion applicant
Oh yeah,
days and things.
I love those issues where they'd have new applicants come around and then they become like comet queen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she's funny and Jed. I forget what Jed's last.
Ted Ricane.
Yeah, and I never understood.
Yeah,
And then Magno boy. What did they call his? Yeah, magnetic boy.
yeah. And then the ones that didn't really do anything, like Lester Spiffany and Dynamo Kid
Yeah.
from the early ones. Yeah. So we're going to talk about what it is that we like about the early Silver Age Legion.
Yeah. Why don't we? For me, it's the simplicity of it,
Uh,
and the art. I love that swan art. Um,
and you liked the Forte before that as well, didn't you?
yeah, I do like Forte.
Did you?
It's perfect for those stories. It's that perfect storm of I don't think because there's a different style shift in the writing when it switches to Swan.
Yeah, because it was young Jim Shooter was writing, and he was also doing layouts for Kurt Swan to try and make things a bit more dynamic and Marvel-like, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I think it succeeds. I still think it's the best stuff he ever wrote.
Oh, it's wonderful
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, because some of his Marvel
Yeah,
stuff is crap.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not even just some of his Marvel stuff is just horrible.
Oh, let's have another podcast on that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think.
I can't.
But
I'm not.
yeah,
I'm not going to sing his praises for everything. I'm
yeah,
an
but
Avengers
yeah,
fan, and I remember when it shifted from Englehart to Conway to Shooter, and then back to Conway, and there was a reason.
I enjoyed Shooter's original one with what's his face, that super powered, that guy from the future when he had Guardians of the Galaxy. But no, yeah. So I'll go back to the Legion. But yeah, one of the first things I loved about the Legion was the promise of the name, the size of the team. I mean, the Legion of Superheroes, 100 super people, except it turns out that apparently in the 30th century, Legion must have meant 30.
Yeah.
Although think on, I wonder if the 30-member limit was connected to the fact it was in the 30th century, and perhaps nowadays maybe there's a 31-member limit.
Yeah, I don't know. Because I learned about that rule like secondhand when Superboy was coming back.
Yeah,
They had to make, you're only allowed to have 27, blah blah, or whatever the number was.
yeah. To
And
do with taxes, it was, I think.
what?
I think it was to do with interplanetary taxes or something.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
made up some silly rule. I liked it. I like the large cast. I like a
yeah,
big cast. I like a dynamic of a cast. And a lot of the Silver Age stuff, I mean, they actually gave them, Saturn Girl and Lightning Lad were in love, and they were a real couple, and that they paired off like teenagers would.
yep, yep.
Yeah, and I liked that. And I liked, like, for the Forte era, and then because you would be given every other story was someone infiltrating the Legion.
Oh, absolutely. Created within the Legion, lad.
Yeah. And then you had stuff like how Mon-El came in as in disguise and stuff. All those neat little, we would look at them as kitschy kind of stories now.
Yeah, but at the time, reading about what was Mon-El called, Legionnaire Lemon. If you were a kid who were paying attention and knew the story from Superboy, you could have seen that anagram of Lemon as Mon-El and felt smart with the Legion.
Yeah, and they were great, and they're simple one-issue stories that and there's some. I've been saying this on the podcast, and so far when I've covered Silver Age stuff is everything would be split in. If you were the feature title in a DC comic, you had two parts. You had enough page count to tell a well-rounded story and to create a well-formed character. Even though the characters in that era were more simplistic because they were telling simple one and done stories, but I knew who the characters were. I knew their personality. And even for the era, Saturn Girl being a leader in the 1960s.
Well, she was the first female leader of a super team at all.
Yeah, and they didn't write it out. She was a good leader. She was an amazingly good leader, and she had tragedy in her leadership.
Oh, she did. That was again another thing. One of the things I liked about the team from the start, that the lasses and the lads were on equal terms.
Yes.
Anything a boy could do, a girl could do possibly better. And I mean, my blog, Too Dangerous for a Girl, you probably know, is named after a moment in the early adventure comics when Brainiac 5 tells Saturn Girl, she can't come on a mission because it's too dangerous for a girl, and she puts them right pretty quickly, and I think soon becomes the leader.
Yeah. Is that part of that? Is that right before she becomes leader? Or is that part of that leader, that storyline where she's elected?
I could do some quick flicking now, but I think it's round about the same time. Someone would be shouting at the podcast, shouting, but it's round about then anyway.
Yeah, it's in that era, and I like that. I think everybody who wrote it, were they consciously trying to attract girls to a superhero book a little bit.
I think because I think that was one of the reasons, when you had the excellent response to Supergirl, they were very quick to put Supergirl into her own action comic. In fact, no, actually that was planned from the start, but it was equally popular in those days with boys and girls from what I've read in the letter columns and things. So yeah, I think so. It made absolute sense to have pretty much equality.
Yeah,
in the Legion.
And I don't think you see it anywhere else. I think you don't see it in superhero team comics until the late 80s, early 90s, where you see Byrne moves Invisible Girl to the front, Invisible Woman to the front. The Wasp becomes leader of the Avengers, and then Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, becomes the next leader.
Absolutely, so meanwhile, while DC was having Saturn Girl be the leader, and you're having all these, amazing characters like Phantom Girl and Dream Girl get great storylines, at Marvel it was like the secretaries were weeping over the superheroes, and Sue Storm was going, "Ooh, Reed, what does it mean?" And it was quite ridiculous. So I mean, even in the DC comics, they weren't as progressive as the Legion, because the girlfriends were irritating, weren't they? Like, Iris was always nagging Barry Allen, and Jean Loring was.
Oh God, yeah. And
then a long time before the really old God, no, but yeah.
Yeah, and
she was
and it's
annoying.
it's always been part of Legion because it continues.
Yep.
And I think even for male fans, that some of their favorite. I mean, Saturn Girl's it's always been one of the most popular. I think she's more popular than, say, Lightning Lad and Cosmic Boy are with fans.
I think so, because I mean she was always at the forefront, but never in a way that she seemed to be hogging. And I think the pink bikini costume helped as well, but her personality, she was just straightforward, good, honest. She knew how to team.
Very competent, that she was the heart of the team.
Really was, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why why they always bring back the original three, is because they are the heart of the team, but her more so. She binds, because Cosmic Boy, those three original Legionnaires are so fleshed out during that era, once it became the main title, once,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, that Cosmic Boy was the natural leader. She was the heart of the team. And
yeah,
Lightning Lad was always trying to live up to them.
yeah, yeah. He was a try. He wasn't, he wasn't as successful as a leader, and
Yeah.
he had, but he was interesting, and the tragedies that happened to him, sort of being dead and having his arm blown off and all sorts, and
Oh,
it was
yeah.
just
I love the
really
Moby
quick.
Dick of space.
Oh yeah, as you say, that the stories originally were self-contained, but very quickly within the first year, they started having the issue-to-issue, continuity coming in with things like, sort of him being dead, like,
Yeah.
Saturn Girl bringing him back and this, that, and the other, and Lightning last joining the team.
Yeah, and I don't think you see that in other comics of that era. It was always the great reset button. They would have an adventure and everything would reset at the end.
Yep,
But there
and
was
again,
cause and effect in Legion that if something
yep,
happened, you were going to hear about it.
and I think that's connected to what I was saying before about I like the fact that it wasn't too connected to the 20th century. It meant they could just go their own way and have things happen, have things change. Powers change, relationships change, people die. Because the Legion. You had Lightning Lad die, you had Furrow Lad die, you had poor Protty One die, sacrifice himself.
Oh my god! And then it became a big thing. Is like in like we would see that Hall of Heroes, all the statues. It became important that
Yeah,
that being a Legionnaire was dangerous and there was effects.
it really wasn't. Yeah. Everybody wanted to join, and again, that brings me to another thing that I loved, which we touched on earlier. The the membership trials when people could just show up. Anyone could show up and say, I want to join the Legion. And you'd have all these kind of no hopers, and the luckiest and the most talented would join. A lot of the rejects would, suddenly go away dejected. Others would say, swear vengeance on the Legion and wind up in the Legion of supervillains.
Yeah.
And the best became the Legion of Substitute
I
Heroes.
love that. I love when they show up in the Silver Age stories. I love it. I think they're great. When Polar Boy finally got to be a member,
Yeah,
I was so happy. It was like, oh my god! And then he got elected leader.
absolutely. And he was still drawn as the short guy. It was brilliant.
It
It
was
was just,
he's such a great character, and Levitz and them because everything Levitz and Giffen did was really kind of picking up what um, they did in the adventure era.
it was.
Yeah, it's kind of like they didn't ignore what happened in the 70s. Because you got great characters in the 70s like Dawnstar and
Wild.
Wildfire who
Yeah,
became incredibly important
yeah.
Legion characters and still are. When they
And
every time they reboot them, those two are toward the front.
yeah, and even Block, who appeared in a pretty poor throwaway story,
Block is one of
was
my favorite.
yeah, but became one of the best Legionnaires
Oh
ever.
my God! See, that's my thing is as much of a Legion fan as I was before Levitt and Giffen. There is something that happens in that, and I just got my hard copy version of the deluxe Darkside Saga. I missed it when it came out, and I
Yeah,
realized that the trade back only has from Annual 1.
yeah,
I'm like, what? Wait a minute. You need the 5 issues before because they lead up to it. They're like the
yeah.
prelude, and that's where Levitz and Giffen are kind of going. We're getting everything in place for something that's going to blow your damn mind.
Yep, yep. I do think it's funny that DC recently put the second one's just come out. They brought out those two collections of Jerry Conway and Joe Staton Morrissey material and slapped on Before the
I
Darkness.
know. I just got mine, and it was a joy because I had just bought a beat up copy of the deluxe Darkside Saga without a
Uh,
dust jacket, and I only got it for like $11.
yeah, I managed to get it because I have it originally. I think it's down in the northeast of England, but just in case, a few years ago, I managed to find on eBay the first ever trade paperback collection of the Great Darkness Saga with the pull out poster.
Ooh, I don't have that. That sounds nice.
I'll, I'll go back on camera when we stop talking to our friends here and show you.
Oh, that'd be
But
yeah, because I
I,
just got that latest collection. When I slid it into place, I have every Legion from 247 to the end of the Great Darkness Saga in hardback.
oh,
Yeah, it is
congratulations.
because I have all 13 archives.
With the Legion membership trials, I wonder. We never saw it, but I wonder how many Metropolis kids would just show up at the Legion trials, say, "Oh, my power's not working today," and just to get given the consolation prize of the flight belt or the flight ring later. I would just love those.
Oh, I love those tryout issues. I do, and I liked, and see I, some of the characters that you saw in them would come back and be important, and also like when ones got in, when Shooter's first story, which is it's amazing. How old was he when he wrote?
13.
13 years old, and he created three of the most popular legionnaires of all time.
And one of the best villains.
And oh God, when he kills Karate Kid and Projector kills him, it is that whole arc toward the in that it was like, wow, you are putting things happen and have ramifications in your story.
Oh, it's so powerful. Certainly, if anyone's listening to this and hasn't read the post Giffen issues when it was Paul Levitt and Steve Lytle and then Greg LaRocque, still you get 60 odd issues of absolute fantastic.
Oh my
Legion.
God, Steve Lytle's art, and both of them and LaRocque are just amazing, and they are just. It's such a good run. I don't think it really falters.
Quizlet, take away Quizlet.
I don't mind Quizlet. Quizlet's kind of cute. I like Tellus. I like Tellus and Quizlet because I was one. Yeah. It's like we needed. It was about time that you saw aliens that weren't bipedal humanoids.
Very, very, very true.
Yeah,
true.
I mean, some of the other stuff it got a little weird, but I mean, and then killing off Cosmic Boy's little brother and showing that Polar Boy fails a little bit as a leader.
Absolutely, but I mean, even before Cosmic Boy's little brother had been killed off, you had that issue where where was it Earth that was bombed or Brawl that was bombed, and Cosmic Boy found out just how powerful he could be, became Magneto level,
yeah,
and that was when he really became interesting.
Yeah, he. I don't think he was written as well as other characters at times during the Levitz era, but I think that Levitz and Giffen and the others were more focused on, I think, the characters that had come in when they were kids.
I think so. I always liked Cosmic Boy when he was with Night Girl with her beehive.
I don't know why they ever took the beehive away from her because it just looked.
Oh, it's fine.
It worked as a future hairdo, and she became a well-rounded. They really.
She was. Yeah, sorry. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
I think that Giffen is much. I think sometimes in the Silver Age that the substitute heroes are a little more well-rounded, developed characters sometimes.
Yeah.
Because you knew them, and then when Levitz and Giffen were using them, because they would use them a lot.
Oh, they would.
And they really gave Polar Boy and Night Girl a lot more to do even before Polar Boy joined.
Yeah, I mean, they got such respect. And I mean, when you think that Night Girl started off as a Cosmic Girl fanboy who, sort of managed to get hold of the helmet that he wore in the first issue and used to revere it, but she became a total fantastic superheroine.
Yeah.
That's one of the absolute best things about the early Adventure Legion when the substitutes came in, and it just showed the kids reading that even if you're not like the big sports star, you can do your bit. You can be good. You can be trying. You can be humble. You didn't even need the Legion to know that you were helping them behind the scenes. What a fantastic message! You could be short, and again, and even on the main team, Bouncing Boy showed that you could be chubby, husky, and you could still be a fantastic, indispensable member of the team. And in fact, he joined the subs for a while as well, didn't he? So yeah.
Yeah, I love all that stuff. It's just so good. And I'm doing my Legion Adventure part of the podcast is going to be fun, and it's not forcing me, but it's allowing me an excuse to do a reread. Because I haven't done it in a while, and I mean I still get some modern comics. There's still a handful of titles I still collect. Anytime there's a Justice Society something pop up, and I'm not minding the Bendis. The Bendis Legion is okay. I have an issue with him as a writer sometimes. Sometimes I love him. Sometimes I hate him.
Gotcha.
I think he doesn't spend enough time on character development. I think I've liked the art of this recent reboot, and I've liked aspects of it. I think it needs a tighter writer.
I think it's certainly one of the problems with Bendis, who again I like an awful lot of his stuff, is wrapping up things, leaving things unsaid, not explaining things. There's so much emphasis on the zippy dialogue and amusing the reader
Yeah.
that you don't always understand the motivation or how things are wrapped up.
Yeah, and I don't like the redesign of Element Lad.
Horrible. He looks like Shaggy Rogers with
No, he looks
green.
like Brother Power the Geek.
Oh, he looks like him as well. Yes.
And I just, and I, I'm one of those people that, Element Lad's my Legionnaire, but I bought,
Yes, I like him so much.
but I bought what happened to him in Legion Lost. It was earned.
Yeah, the tragedy.
That tragedy of him being alone and going mad. It's like when Hal Jordan became Parallax, people, how can you make him be a villain? He just saw his hometown nuked. There's cause and effect. He cannot come out of that Apollyanna, and I grew up. My dad was a Marine general, and he did HR stuff when I was a kid for the Marine Corps, and we talked while he was alive about post-traumatic stress because he had seen combat, and he would always say, "Is you send boys to a bad place to do bad things, they come back broken."
Yeah.
And sometimes heroes do really go into have things happen to them, and they to come out unscathed is unrealistic.
No, and I think had the element I'd been like alone for millennia or something.
Yeah, the loneliness,
Yeah.
the madness that would come with being isolated, I think it was an amazing piece,
Yeah.
and it was earned. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't mind it. I mean, there's some other stuff. There's some stuff in the Siobhan Aaron transgender arc,
Yeah.
which was, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt that they were trying to tell a story. I just think they miss. They really just miss. They just miss. I don't want to say. I don't want to get on them for being. I think they were trying to be
It seemed to be
different.
saying.
I don't know how to explain the how they just failed at showing a non-cis relationship.
Yeah. I mean, if I remember right, the idea was that he had been shown Aaron, but he was gay and thought that if he was a girl, he'd have a chance with Element Lad, who all the fans thought was
Oh.
costume. And it's like if they'd had him just be gay and had Element Lad fall from into the future, whatever.
Yeah, I just think they were trying to get it past the what the societal mindset was at the time.
Yeah.
Where we have to do it. It's a very Gene Roddenberry Star Trek, overly simplistic mistake. I mean, I remember reading it going, "Oh, this is bad."
It was well intended.
Yeah, they had. I mean, I'm gonna give them the benefit of it. I think Levitt's just trying to say something.
But again, the cover they put on that issue, which were homage to the 60s DC Love comics and 70s, again, that sort of muddies the message and makes it look like it's going to be a camp jokey issue.
Yeah.
The whole idea behind it was quite poignant and sad.
And some of those romance comics are really problematic now, and they were problematic in the 80s. I mean, I just listened to an Earth 2 podcast where they talk about Lois having to raise the super baby.
Oh, the papoose.
Well, no, it's the one where they think he's been regressed, and her and Lana are trying to brainwash the baby version
of Superman.
Yeah, to love them.
The one in the 1970s where she goes to a Native American tribe, or I think they're saying Indians then, badly, but and she ends up sort of looking after an orphaned, air quotes, papoose.
Oh, good
and
God.
Again, well-meaning. I mean, even things like that Lois Lane story, I'm Curious Black. I mean, I know people rag on it, but if you actually read it, it's coming from such a place of goodness, and they're trying so hard, and all the way through, Lois is thinking, what a crappy deal people have just for being African American. And it's awful, the idea that you can go into a machine and come out black and it's just for a day. But it's Robert Kanigher, he meant well, and it was getting things talked about.
Yeah, and it's that thing. It was in America. I mean, the writers there are gearing toward the American audience is that you were always told you would have these stories where you want to make a social message, but you had to make it so neutered or neutral
Yeah.
that someone in the Deep South isn't going to be offended by it. Some Christian's not going to write a hate mail thing because you've shown a homosexual, or
Yep.
someone who, a man dressing as a woman, and all this all the stuff that nowadays we're still hearing, and writers are and go on Twitter at any time. I'm very good with my Twitter feed.
Yeah.
I've learned that the algorithm is your friend if you're persistent in who you block. Because I've been very lucky. I don't get a lot, but when I come out for, hey, representation, there's still people who have a knee-jerk reaction to it. And that's what they were afraid of, is, if we tell a story about, two men loving each other, we're going to get hate mail and boycott, you know what I mean? And it's like, well, I'm a theater person, and I work for a gay and lesbian theater company here in Richmond, one of the first on the East Coast in America. And our original managing director goes, what happens when we do stuff that pisses off, the far right, the Christian right around here? Because this is the South. And he goes, oh, no. I want them to be angry. I want them to be plain. I want it to make the newspaper because we're going to sell more damn tickets.
Right.
And he went, all that anger and it's just going to bring people who are like-minded us to come and see the show. It's free advertising. God, please have them protest outside the building so we get on TV. But I think that it was there's some weird things where they tried to push the envelope. And back to Levitt's, they were always trying to tell stories. And I think Levitt's the Levitt's era is probably second only to it. For me, it's the number one, but it and the Silver Age, from how long was it in? From 300 to what? Was it in there for 50 issues?
About 360, 70, something like that.
60 or 70, yeah, and they're great. I mean, it's a lot of great comics, and it was their go-to place when they wanted to reprint stuff.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Because I saw a lot of those in the 100-page Giants. I went on a 100-page Giant spending spree early in the pandemic, and I bought a lot of, like, 5 of I got 3 of the Legion 100-page Giants.
Yeah. Did you get that Batman one that had the Legion in?
No, I don't think I got that one. That's a hard one to find. I pulled that up, a list of it, and I went, man, some of these I've never heard of. And the horror and the Western ones are the ones that are like really expensive because there's so few of them.
Yeah, I managed to get. I haven't actually read the horror. I got a horror 100-page giant, which I think is quite rare in the US. Was it Weird or something? It's one of the first 100-page giants, anyway.
Weird Big Green War?
Well, no, actually, weird mystery, I think it was, or something.
Okay, yeah, I think I know. I can't remember what it is, but I can see the logo in my head.
Yeah.
All good. But yeah, I love those 100-page giants because you got so much. You'd get, Justice League one man. It was like oh my God, I'm getting a Justice Society or a Legion, Seven Soldiers of Victory story on top of a great Jerry Conway, Dick Dillon Justice League story.
2 pages of Johnny Peril.
Yeah. God, what else? And then they would have like an old Aquaman with a Ramona Fradon drawn it.
Oh yeah, absolutely wonderful stuff. It's a shame there weren't more League, more Superboy in the Legion Giants.
Yeah, I'd liked one of my favorite comics I ever owned, and I don't have my floppy Legion comics. I have a handful of them that I bought after selling the bulk of my collection. One was I bought myself a new copy of Legion Annual 1, the introduction of Invisible Kid 2.
Yep.
Which I think is still a masterpiece. I think it is it's a gateway drug to Legion. But I also got one I wish I had was the reprint of with the Starling cover of the original Universo story.
Oh right, yes, got that, yeah.
Yeah. One, it's just a great story.
237 or 238.
Yeah, it was just a beauty. It was amazing. So let's wrap this up, and let me ask you, do you have an absolute favorite Legion story,
Absolute favorite Legion story. Goodness
or
me.
one you would
And
recommend? How about we?
well, I mean, I have to want one from the Silver Age because that was our initial focus, or just from any time.
No, just the Silver Age. We'll do Silver Age.
Just this, I was going to say if it was later, I might say the Universal project, but the Silver Age. Actually, I think it would be the issues that you mentioned. Was it the first Fatal Five story, the introduction of feral lad, karate kid, princess protector, and nemesis kid, just so much excitement. And then again, I mean, things like the death of Lightning Lad was
Yeah,
wonderful.
my brother bought that as a back issue in like the
Yeah,
70s, and I read it was the first time I read it. I actually read the physical copy. It's such a oh god, it's so good. And
oh, brilliant. Yeah,
I would have to
the
say
first
it's
Dream
the out.
story,
Hmm? I'm sorry.
the first Dream Girl story, the revolt of the Girl Legionnaires. There's too many.
I know it
All of
is.
them.
I will always go back to the Surprise Mysterious Legion Outcast.
Oh, it's just it is marvelous stuff. But and again that two-part story with the Superstar Leg of Space.
Oh my God, yeah, that's a set. They're so well written, and there's so much. There's something I miss in modern comics, because modern comics are 22 pages and out.
Yeah,
There's not, they don't, and I mean, I don't want to say we're putting too much emphasis on the artist, the penciler's place in comics, because it is a visual medium, but there has to be dialogue. You do sometimes have to tell, not show.
absolutely. Something like the Superstar Leg of Space. You can have a literal throwaway character like Blockade Boy who gets killed, and you know him for a couple of pages, and you care.
Yeah,
You know,
they've had a conversation. You understand who he is. I think I'm a Claremont apologist sometimes. I love his X-Men are some of my favorite, and he's a wordy mug. He's wordy. I don't care
yeah,
if it's helping progress the story and develop character. Where's the action? Action will come. Take a breath. you know. Uh,
I guess the action's great, but with Claremont, okay, on the one hand you can take the Mickey, and he always has people say, I am Aurora, I'm Fire, I'm Light, I'm Ellen, but he always explains who people are, always gives you the context, and there's plenty of room, as you say, for the action for new characters, but it gives you the context. It is that old Jim Shooter thing. Was it Jim Shooter say every comic is somebody's first? Whereas
yes,
nowadays,
you have to
the
do it.
no, there's no recap page. There's no little recap box on page one like you get in the 70s or the 80s. Characters appear and their names aren't actually given at any point. It's just
Oh, I miss a
shitty.
little asterisk. For years, they got rid of the asterisk. So someone referenced something, and then you would see it at the bottom of the panel
Yeah,
what issue they were referencing. Continuity
yeah,
is not your enemy.
absolutely not. But nowadays they've thrown away so many things like continuity, editors' notes, thought bubbles, which actually writers Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad have brought back in Wonder Woman recently. Thought balloons rather,
I just
and
don't get what I mean. It's
use your tool.
yeah. I'm listening to, I'm following some of the feedback in Twitter in the background about DC and the issues and things that have come up, and I watched the YouTube channel, and then I watched a second one by these people, and I'm not going to say their name because they hate they just why are you talking about comics if you hate every single one you read?
Yeah,
But I think some of their comments about what is failing with the two companies are true. Is one, like there's too much Batman at DC. I don't think you're wrong there. I don't think they what they need is more marketing. But DC in the past couple of years, they hired people from the gaming industry, and
yeah,
they're
yeah.
going toward a new audience, and they're trying to expand their audience. And I think creating characters, that are different. They're reinventing characters, and they're expanding what type of characters they're writing about, whether it be gay or or black, a black Batman, stuff like that, is always expand the audience. I get.
I get that. I get in bringing people from gaming, bringing in people from TV, bringing in people from more diverse backgrounds, younger backgrounds, whatever. But I just wish we had the old system where you had people trained over a couple of years
Yes.
on or with editors who would teach them how to write a story. Whereas nowadays, like often these 80-page giants, come in and they'll give someone a story and it'll make bugger all sense. It'll just have their favourite character in who they've decided is now, binatal or whatever.
Yeah.
Things make me up here, but it's like that new Flash they've got who's gender neutral or whatever. And it's like they've appeared about 3 or 4 times, and you know nothing about them. It's like I run fast, I'm gender neutral, I'm from somewhere else. Here's my name, and it's just
But you don't
give
see
it.
that
Yeah,
you don't and I'm going to use something at Marvel to where it works. So when they created the new Ms. Marvel,
yeah, brilliant.
she's an amazing character because she is fleshed out from the beginning.
Yeah, from the ground up, you know who she is. You meet her family, you hear about her background, bit by bit. You see her learning on the job, and it was G. Willow Winslow, I think. It's just did a fantastic job.
Yeah, that's my problem is as and it's not just with these new characters. It's with any comic they put DC's. Some of the comics that DC's putting out is there is no character development. Nothing is earned.
No,
Does that make
things
sense?
just
That you have to earn this character has to earn its place, and the writer has to build a personality. I think it's probably working better with John Kent and I'm behind on my Superman reading, but I want to read it. And I've read some of the Bendis, and I don't mind. It's good. It's a good. They're good. Some of them are good stories.
yeah. I hate the fact that it ages John up, but Bendis used him rather well. But I've read all 8 issues of the Superman, the new Superman, Son of Kal-El, and it is like he's a different character. He's got none of the joie de vivre that young Tween John had in the Super Sons. It's as if he's just come out, just come from nowhere and doesn't know
So it's
anything about.
okay. So it's basically no curve to the arc. It's kind of like a right angle. It's just we're going to go in a completely different direction.
Yeah, all the characters that we had is it's just like he's there now, and I believe Tom Taylor when he's saying, he hasn't just brought the bisexuality in as a gimmick, but it's just out of nowhere. It's not, and they're not doing anything with it. It's just, well, I actually think the guy that's his boyfriend, Jay, I think he's got some kind of mind control going on. It's just because otherwise, or it might just be a consequence of the fact that you don't get much in the way any thought balloons, or you're not really seeing John's point of view. He's like a passive character in his own book, and nothing's earned. Just they just see each other and like each other, and it just seems like me and Dr. Ange, we think this guy Jay is a bad guy. But yeah, Tom Taylor, I'm a big fan of his writing, but I don't think the new Superman book is working. I'd be interested for you to see what you thought of it.
I'll have to go back and read it because I want to read some of them. I'm behind, and my thing is, I think it's great. I think these new characters, I don't want them to give up on them. What
Yeah,
I want them is to double down on it. You need to put the effort in to get someone. I am a 57-year-old cis white male. I want to
just
read their story.
this. Yeah,
You see, I want to read their story. So, but I need more than you just saying that the character is bisexual or gay or what. You need to tell me what are they like in their daily life? Who do they love? Why did they love? You know what I mean? I
yeah.
want
And
the
with
interpersonal stuff. I don't.
with John, there was no lead up. There was no like panels of noticing Jay or no inner thoughts in the narrative boxes or in word balloons for sort of thinking, oh, I like Saturn Girl a couple of months ago, and now I'm like this guy as well. And it's just out of nowhere. No mention of the Legion business with Saturn Girl at all. So,
Yeah,
anyways,
but that's another problem with comics is you don't have someone going, whoa, 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 you're contradicting something in another book.
yeah, absolutely.
That's a
It's
huge problem. It's like you
yeah,
have to have some continuity.
yeah. This doesn't have to be a contradiction. It can just be like explain, put it in some kind of context, have it as an arc, a journey that John's on. But rather just like in that comic over there last year, he had that girlfriend. Now he's liking a lad. No reference anyway. Hey ho.
Yeah, but that's my problem with modern comics is and across the board is the lack of development, the lack of, unless you got a good writer who has a plan for their run, including character's journey.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's one and dones, and it's a lot. I mean, and I normally don't agree with the naysayers. I think comics reinvent themselves every 5 to 10 years. It's just get over it. I survived Crisis. You can survive Flashpoint. Just get over it. It's going to change. I'm a Doctor
But
Who
this,
fan. The Doctor changes. Just
yeah.
stop
But this
complaining about it.
have you read any of the Action Comics run with Superman? The
No, I
current one?
really am behind, but I'm getting them and I'm putting them aside because they look good.
Yeah, well, they're the writer Philip Kennedy Johnson. He does have a big plan, and it might go on a little longer than I would have wanted, but it's excellent stuff, brilliant artist, and it started in the issues of the Future State, which I wasn't behind, but then
Yeah,
when he's built up to this storyline. He's now got Superman on World with Mongol and then this new authority and various other characters that are coming in. And it's just absolutely, it really is Superman on a journey. Things are progressing. You can see how something that happened a few issues ago leads to this. And I think it is going to end up being a modern classic run.
yeah, and that's good. That's why I kept getting it. And the guy who owns my comic shop is not like me. Is not the greatest Bendis fan. I mean, I like Bendis when I like him, and I hate him when I hate him. But he said that the Bendis stuff was pretty good at the beginning.
There's been his Action Comics much better than the Superman run, but he's great. And again, when you hear him chatting, he's such a nice guy, and he means so well.
He's one of
Things
us. That's the thing.
yeah,
I still like him, and I
when,
liked Powers.
yeah, yeah, things didn't always work. I absolutely did not enjoy his Avengers. I mean, I jumped off it after about a
Oh
year.
my God, I'm an Avengers guy,
Yeah.
and that Secret Invasion was like, could you stop
Oh,
doing these one and done issues about a single character and not advance your plot?
well, I mean, he pretty much almost lost me when he started with I think it was 399-400 when you have the Scarlet Witch going mad for ways that didn't make sense, and about 20-30 Avengers just standing around outside the mansion, just standing doing nothing while
Yeah,
here.
yeah. I didn't. Once he got past that first arc, I liked the new lineup. At times there was things in it I liked. But no, but his Ultimate Spider-Man's great. His Young Justice recently was
Yeah, it was
great. I mean, he
pretty
does a
good.
good kids comic.
Yeah, and again, he's one of those. He's a big Legion fan, and I'm really, hoping he gets long enough on the Legion to do a darn good run.
I just wish they'd get. Yeah, I think it's going to be spotty and choppy. I think they're going to do like they did 2 arcs, then they're going to do this Legion crossover, and then they may not do Legion again. I don't. I think DC's gonna. I think it's going to be something that comes and goes. I think they need to. They need to get. I don't know. In my thing, I'd get a different writer on it.
I think so, 'cause I enjoy Brian, but he's got so many other commitments
Yeah.
that I would rather have a writer who's less busy.
Oh
And
well.
I've heard Brian say that he doesn't think it's quite as important to have a Legion magazine every month. I want a Legion magazine.
Yes, it is. It's very important.
Legion. I don't think you have to. I mean, having grown up in the era of fill-ins, I don't think you have to have every issue. You'll always have to aim for things to be absolutely amazing and memorable and one for the ages. Just, I would be very happy to having a few good issues that are just regular, in the nicest possible sense, bog standard but high quality comics.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think there are people out there who could write. I think Sook's a good artist on it.
Yeah.
Some of his redesigns, I'm like, not my cup of tea, but I like enough of them. I like having the Gold Lantern. That's kind of intriguing me. Dr.
Not me.
Fate.
Too much connection to the current day. Although we always had the Green Lantern mythology in the Legion from the 70s or 80s onwards. But yeah, like you say, I mean, Peter J. Tomasi, he could come in and write a good Legion.
Oh, he'd be great. He'd be
Gail,
good.
Gail Simone, I'd like to have seen more.
Oh,
of
good
her
God,
Legion.
yes. Anything. She could write anything. I loved the Secret Six.
Oh, absolutely. Just wonderful.
What it was like, oh my God, I loved John Ostrander's Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
It was very similar to that the villains, well, she can write a great group of characters. She knows characterization.
Yeah, but there's so many writers, as you say, who could do.
Well, you brought up Bendis, and what about this Bendis Legion cartoon? It's going to be a cartoon, right? It's animated.
I think it's going to be like adult cartoon in the form of Young Justice, but I've never seen Young Justice, so I don't know.
Young Justice is okay. It's serialized. I got bogged down in the third season. The character designs are atrocious. No, they're designing the costumes like they were designing them for live action, and
Oh,
that's
right. Well,
you know what I mean? Like they have an Arrow and Flash, which are okay, and I've watched those.
go for the colours.
They have some weird color palette too.
Yeah.
There's a neutral, but I'm looking forward to it. I didn't mind the previous Legion cartoon.
I've got it. I don't really tend to watch superhero cartoons. I've never even seen Super Friends, so
Yeah, you're not missing. I mean, it is what it is. The Filmation
I
ones are
watch
better, and
Brave and, Brave and Bold. I enjoy them, but
Brave and
I
Bold
just
was great.
generally can't be bothered to sit down and watch cartoon. I'm just not a very big cartoon fan,
I,
which makes
I think most superhero cartoons have been meh. So,
yeah.
well, folks, want to thank you, Martin. I'm going to kind of wrap this up. Thank you for coming on. I think you'll definitely invite you back for more Legion fun. Maybe when I get to certain Legion issues, I'll do for my Legion adventure. I'll do a longer version because they tend to be just me talking for 10 minutes about why I like the comic and whatever strikes my fancy at that moment. But
Surprised and mysterious, perhaps.
I got a way to go. I'm only, I'm not even to adventure. I'm still not even halfway through Archive 1. But I definitely want to have you back, baby. They're doing a second 5 years later omnibus. That was announced over here, and I'm looking.
Again, that makes no sense because they're calling it 5 years later, but it's not. The 5 years later, once you got beyond the original Giffen bit and up to well, everything that they've got in the first 5 years later, to me that's not really 5 years later. As such, that's just they've gone in a new direction, and you end up with that.
You could just call it the SW6 book or whatever. I mean,
Yeah,
which I like that little click that little twitch is. Are these the real ones? Are these clones?
I like that, but then very before too long you get fat old Brainiac 5 and Spider Girl with a
Well,
hairdo.
the end of it was like I was like, what are you doing? Oh, thank God, bring 0 Hour now. I mean, people complain about 0 Hour. So no. It was a good thing. It was a good thing.
But yes, yeah, I'd love to go back sometime. Thanks, Ross.
Oh, it'd be great. Hey, so where can people find you and your amazing blog?
My blog's called Too Dangerous for a Girl, and if you tweet that or if you Google that, you'll find me. Or you can find me at Twitter at Mart Gray or at Danger Mart, which is a Too Dangerous for a Girl linked Twitter feed I don't use enough. And I'm just everywhere. Find me on Facebook if you want, but I'll pop up here and there. In fact, you can find me on another podcast very soon on the All Star Squadron podcast, which we're recording later today. So,
oh, I can't wait! It's one of my favorite podcasts.
We'll be talking Secret Origins #1, Golden Age Superman, and also Squadron with Night and Fog, which is about number 43 or something.
I can't wait. That Billy posted the cover, and I love that Wayne Boring inked by Jerry Ordway.
It is marvelous.
Oh my God, I'm a huge Wayne Boring fan.
I love it. I mean, when you see Wayne Boring draw Lila Lowell, it's just not. Yeah. Whew.
It's amazing. Well,
yeah.
Well, folks, you can find. Thank you for joining us again, and you can find us my tweets for this podcast at JSA4E. That's the number 4, so JSA4E. You can also find me on the Twitter feeds for my 2 Doctor Who podcasts. One is at Gallifrey MW Pod, and the other is at Runcible Report. But until I come back, you all be safe, be smart, and read some comics.